Hey everyone, welcome to the Yoga in Black podcast. If you're not new, however, welcome back. I'm Tierney, your host, and this show is all about the experiences of Black yoga and wellness professionals. Each episode, I'm joined with a new guest, and we'll just have a conversation between two peers about our experiences within the yoga and wellness industries, and also highlight where you can find their classes. At the forefront, this show is all about letting you know that Black folks are out here in this wellness industry doing amazing things that you can experience. So with that said, grab your favorite beverage. You know I got mine in the favorite mug. And let's have a chat. This is your friendly reminder that all episodes of this podcast are pre-recorded and some topics or events discussed may be outdated. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Yoga in Black podcast. My name is Tierney. I am your host, and this week I am joined by the Kat Francis from Richmond, Virginia. And as always, I'm just not going to talk anymore for a little bit. Go ahead, Kat. Tell us about yourself.
Hey, guys. I'm Kat. I've been teaching yoga for a few years. I'm actually from Brooklyn. I'll never claim Richmond. Not for real.
I don't blame you.
Like, what's in Richmond? I don't know. But I'm here and I'm grateful. What can I tell you? I got into wellness work through the doula thing. So I went through this program, called Ancient Song, and it was a doula, full spectrum doula offering to low income women. And I found the practice of prenatal yoga through that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a great thing. I wonder what other kinds of yoga I can teach and share and all that stuff. That kind of just propelled me into the world of yoga and wellness and women and Black women and that stuff.
That's so cool. When did you start doing the doula thing?
So I started doing the doula thing in 2015.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was a while. It's crazy because it feels like it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And it was way more than that. It was before I got pregnant with my daughter. And then that also emphasized the importance of it, because then I became pregnant and I was like, oh, like this is not just some fluff, like this actually helps people.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty big impact on my practice.
That's so dope. What's the process of becoming a doula?
So this is like a little tricky because it depends on who you ask. Technically, there are certifications. So I believe the organization is called DONA. I don't know if that's the actual acronym, where you become certified through that. So usually organizations partner with DONA, similar to what's the name of that association? The Yoga Alliance,
Gotcha.
Where organizations will partner with that alliance and you get your certification, you do a certain amount of hours or you do whatever processes and they certify you through that. I notice a lot of doulas who are Black and brown don't necessarily opt in for that because it's community-wise, it's just not necessary. And also there's so many there's just a way that the system has failed, healthcare and the birth system. So because the healthcare system doesn't care about doulas and birth workers, there isn't a ironclad system. So if you're super serious and you have the access, then you're on DONA and they can look you up and say, okay, this person is a doula. But I mean, Erykah Badu ain't on DONA. She's not on there, at least to my knowledge. I never looked her up, but I'm pretty sure she's not on there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a community-based thing. And then usually people work with organizations. So that's usually the lanes that it goes through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit more about how your doula work really led you into yoga?
Yeah, so because of doula work being kind of holistic oriented and your role is to help prepare moms for the labor process, and depending what kind of doula you are, because I'm full spectrum, but that there's like before care, after care, during, and a lot of that is preparing the physical body. Women go through a lot of physical changes. I'm sure it is either you know by experience or can imagine through pregnancy. And it was a service that was offered through the nature of holistic care. So a woman who is experiencing labor, or who is experiencing like just the physical experience of pregnancy, they will have to learn certain things, how to breathe properly, how to open their hips. And so prenatal yoga is a really great way to kind of deal with that. There's also Lamaze, which isn't yoga, but it does kind of incorporate like the mindfulness, the deep breathing. I think it's a little airy-fairy, but it is helpful in labor. So there's that. So I hope that answered your question.
It did. You know, I've always kind of felt like Lamaze took a lot from pranayama.
Yeah. I mean, what is original, right?
I know.
But I totally
see how far we can date it back.
Oh, for sure. Like, let's show me the Carfax. Like, what's good? Yeah.
Man, that is awesome. So then tell me a little bit about that first experience that you had with yoga. What was it like for you?
So my first experience with yoga completely was in high school. I love like the idea that I was able to do yoga in high school in New York. And I had this teacher named Miss Diorio. So this is my first experience with yoga in general. As far as teaching yoga through prenatal yoga, that was a whole nother thing. But starting yoga in high school was excellent. I think it was one of the first things that like my body naturally took to. And it was one of those things that I was proficient at. Like, I'm tall, I'm 5'9", I look athletic, but I'm very uncoordinated, generally speaking. So people will expect me to be good at basketball and all that stuff, and I just wasn't. But yoga, my body felt really willing and to explore. And I think it was just pretty life-changing because it was one of the first physical activities that felt natural to my body, even though it was challenging, even though like I didn't know how to do everything properly at first. That was that. And she was great. Her name is Miss Diorio. I think I did my first inversions in that space. There was this one class where she lined all of the girls up. I think there was like one guy in that class, but she lined all the girls up against the wall, and we had to do 3 kinds of headstands. We had to do the tripod one, then the one where you hold onto your head on your forearms. And then this one, I call the Jamaican one because I felt like I've been seeing Jamaican girls do that at like parties, like forever. That one. And you have to do 2 out of 3. And if you did 2 out of 3, even if you were on the wall, you passed. And it was great. It was a great confidence building experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so funny because like, and when I ask people that question, a lot of folks say high school, and it's really surprising to me because I feel like so many of us think that we didn't have exposure to it until later in life, but most of us did kind of get a glimpse of it earlier than that. Did we take it seriously? Maybe not. Because I was one of those where I did have experience with it in high school, but I didn't remember it fully until someone sat and asked me, well, when did you start practicing? And I'm like, well, 13? And I'm like, wait a minute. No, because then I had the Wii, because I did Wii Fit for a minute, and they had like a little yoga program on there. So I did that. It was very awkward, but it was
I bet. Like, how are you going to do the stick in the... What is that?
They had that floor pad that you stand on, and it would just like kind of gauge the amount of weight that you were putting into whatever area of it. So like,
that's fire.
Yeah, it was very awkward though, and I mean, you still had the thing in your hand too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't think I'm getting it, like understanding it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, so there was that one, because I'm gonna get off on a tangent here. And then I thought about it again. I'm like, wait a minute. There was that gym class, because I was in a special gym class for student council, because the way our schedules were set up. So we would do one day student council, another day gym. So we didn't get to have class with the rest of the students. So we would just do something different. And every now and again, the instructor would just be like, all right, here's a DVD, do Richard Simmons today. And then we'll do yoga the next day. And then when it dawned on me, I'm like, oh, snap. I have known about yoga for way more than I realized. but I sometimes think back like, but I wish I had known about it even before that.
Right.
It would have helped with so much stuff as a kid.
Oh, yeah. I definitely feel what you mean. I've taught yoga to a few teenagers, and I think you just kind of helped me draw the connection to that, because I guess it's cyclical. Because I never thought about, especially in the context that a lot of other people have learned about yoga in their teen years, and I'm like teaching kids at this time, and I think to myself, and maybe a little egotistical, but I think like, I wonder how this is impacting their lives, like for the future. like I hope that they're able to like reflect fondly on this. And I do think about like teaching little kids and like how they may be able to like draw those lines and parallels. Like I have a daughter, and like it's not like what you would think where like I'm like making her get up at 6 a.m. to do yoga with me. But if I call out poses to her, she can get into them, you know, and I wonder how that's going to add on foundationally for her. That's interesting.
I love that when yoga teachers have kids, and then the kids just are so immersed in the different practices in ways that aren't necessarily, they, unroll a mat and sit and meditate for hours. Like, no, they still are able to use, breath practices to calm their nerves or ease
We're
their
still working
anger.
on that one, but yeah.
It takes some practice for sure, but that foundation is there. Like, man, I could have used that as a kid because I was an anxious child, and
now we're boats.
Right. It's like she's gotten worse and worse through the years. But now that I have yoga, I'm like, oh, I could have used this back in like 3rd grade.
For real. Especially when they had them state exams, them ELA and all those, and I'm just trying to get a 3 on the math one.
Thank you.
For sure.
Man, it's crazy how all of us, even though each state has their own format, all of us felt that same pressure. Just
a standardized test, yeah.
Yes. Is that still a thing? I'm not a parent, so I don't have any children to reference that.
I always encourage people, like, if you're thinking about not having kids, don't have them. Yeah. You don't have to. It's okay.
It's not my jam. It's not in me. I'm an auntie.
I love that, like, as a collective, not to like go on a tangent here, but I love as a collective.
I invite the tangents.
Tangents are great. Me and my ADHD, we welcome that. But yeah, like, I love that as a culture and as a community, especially like in the intersection of people who have uteruses. I think my daughter is about to come in. We're at a point where people with uteruses can be like, actually, no. Like, actually, this isn't for me. Actually, I want to focus on traveling, or I want to focus on my career, or I don't want to focus on anything. I just want to take a nap whenever I want to take a nap.
That's the part.
And, like, that's great. I encourage that, because I think that if we were more honest about what kind of selfish we'd want to be, that we wouldn't have so many now adults, like, having to reparent themselves because they didn't get what they needed.
Exactly.
So I feel that.
Yes, therapy is a hot commodity right now.
Oh, tell me about it. Trying to find a therapist is like like a good therapist.
Challenging, because there are like those websites that are out now that offer virtual counseling, and I see job openings for therapists all over the place. It's like they are in need. Mm-hmm. But
I'm in school right now for social work, and it's crazy because, like, in order to become a therapist or a psychologist or whatever, what have you, you have to go through the vehicle of social work.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you can go like the medical route, but it's still a lot of schooling, which is the point that I'm trying to make. Because if you go the social work route, you have that, then you have to take an exam, then you need clinical hours, and then you go past that because you need your bachelor's, and then you have to go for your master. It's like a whole thing. But yeah, those job openings are there. It's one of the, like, sincerely really fast growing fields, specifically in the context of social work. But it's also because there's such a growing number of older people without support. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of space.
Man,
Just a lot of work to take on.
big time. So I want to circle back into the work that it is that you do, both with yoga and being a doula. How are you able to enmesh the two together?
Okay, so generally speaking, I think it's just awareness. A lot of yoga is off the mat, right? It's how we carry ourselves. It is our awareness of self, our awareness of breath. And in the context of doula work, it is often bringing the birthing person, I don't want to say back to reality, but back to the present moment.
Yeah.
So there's that. It's encouraging patience with the self, a connection with one body, kind of marrying the mind and the body, right? Like the union of that. And it's kind of just continuous. As far as the physical practice of yoga, it's pretty like straightforward. Like women or people need their hips open to give birth.
Yeah.
That's just, you need the flexibility in the body. You need the stamina that yoga provides because it's literally a marathon. Giving birth is a marathon. On average, the first birth of a person giving birth labor will last from 12 to 24 hours. That's average. Obviously, some people have short births. Like my birth was, I'm really proud to say, all natural, 5 hours, in and out, express situation. I'm very glad to see that, but most people are in the labor room panting, dilating. So yeah, you need that physical practice to kind of prepare the body. Nothing can fully prepare you for labor, but yoga is a great vehicle. I'm trying to think. And then yeah, meditation. I feel like yoga and meditation kind of go hand in hand. And I think anytime you meditate and you find that stillness within your own mind, you can take on anything, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've always felt like yoga and meditation aren't even separate from each other.
Oh, they're not.
Yeah, because there's so many different layers to yoga itself that yoga can be such an umbrella term and talk about so many different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love all of those aspects. And I think like I haven't seen a doula in work, but I have been present for one of my friends' birthing process, and it's necessary to have somebody there that's got your back.
Oh yeah.
Because I saw, like, even though the staff was amazing in the hospital, I could see how there are moments where they might be a little, pushy on things that, the birthing person might not want.
Yeah, no pun intended, I'm sure, but absolutely. And it's also a hospital, and it's inherently very cold. Like you want it to be like a warm, welcoming space, but it is a very cold atmosphere. And unless you have a great midwife and doctor, even then it's very much like, we are here, so you do this thing. And then they kind of kick you out a little bit. They're like, all right.
Yeah.
If you don't have a baby fast enough, then they try to move things on. It's a whole thing. So yeah, I totally see what you mean.
Yeah. So it's such important work. You guys do fantastic things. Bringing new life into the world is, I don't even know a word for it. Like, I'm just completely stumped.
I think that's fair. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's an incredible, very divine process. I don't focus as much on labor, like the labor aspect of doula work now, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a heavy weight, and unfortunately, like, it's hard to be compensated unless you are working either with an organization that compensates you well or the client has access. But it's touch and go. You never really know what people's means or what kind of access people have. So I focus more on postpartum work now, which is equal, opposite, still extremely important.
Yeah.
And also, like, after birth, bro, like, your pelvic floor is shot. I just saw a clip today of Tabitha Brown talking about, like, how her uterus was, she, like, made a joke saying, like, after she gave birth to her, I guess, one of her kids, it was, like, her uterus was, like, peeking out of her vagina, like, hey, y'all.
Like, that kind of prolapsed,
Yeah, and, like, but that's, everyone experiences a degree of prolapse. It's just, is a degree enough to be surgical? Is a degree enough to be alarming? It happens to everyone. I wish somebody told me that. Nobody educated me on uterine prolapse. I was experiencing things. I'm like, but then you have yoga, right? Which is like this deep pelvic breathing. You're holding everything in, and it's great. It's a great practice postpartum. Yeah.
That's so good. That is so good, because I know I do, I guess, in my understanding of the work, what I've seen is a lot of the leading up to and the birthing process, and not much is talked about as far as what happens after.
Yeah.
But
I don't think there's enough
care.
Yeah. I don't think there's enough work around that. I don't think that overall we pay attention to birthing people postpartum after enough at all. That's why folks suffer so much. That's why postpartum depression is a thing, baby blues. We assume that if it's not a severe situation where the person is not ignoring their baby or hurting their baby, that we don't have to pay attention. But your body has gone through a physical trauma. If you're breastfeeding, your body is going through that hormonal change.
Yes.
It is crazy. I breastfed for 2 years, but that process was painstaking. The first month alone of breastfeeding is like, I always tell clients and friends, if they plan on breastfeeding, to just make it through the first 30 days. First 30 days, make it through, then make it through 3 months. And if you can get through that point, everything else, while it has its own tasks, it's way easier than the first 2 weeks when you think you don't have enough milk or your nipples are sore or whatever, you know. But I digress. I think the point of what I'm trying to say is we need more care and attention there.
Yeah. Agreed. So tell me a little bit more about your path into yoga teacher training and what the experience in training was like for you.
So I started my yoga teacher training. I've always wanted to teach yoga. I think since high school, I've always wanted to, but I was in a relationship at the time that wasn't really fulfilling, which illuminated like this gaping hole of like something I needed to do to like fulfill myself. I was already doing yoga in my own personal spare time. That was at the end of 2019, I believe. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this teacher training. And it was a school in Queens. And I was like, oh, like, I'm going to do this one. And I picked the school. I believe it was transitioning into 2020, but it was before pandemic stuff. And then, I was just like, let's just do it. My first teacher training I did 200 hours. Nice. The first one I did, it went fast, like the one I'm describing. And anatomy did not stick for some reason. Like, they throw all these body parts at you, but for some reason, like, I couldn't. And this is, I guess, just how my brain functions or what, but I couldn't marry anatomy and sequencing. I'm like, okay, like, but yes, the muscles and muscles and joints do this, but like, I don't get how I can make that like cohesive for a body to move.
Yeah.
It just did not. I don't know. Maybe I was sleeping. I don't know what was going on.
No, anatomy is hard. Like, there are full college courses on it that people take and struggle through because it's so complex. And
then they teach you that you can Latin. You learn, okay, these are the 3 different kinds of contractions, but every muscle motion is a contraction, and like how to activate that. And I was really, because like my goal was to make my yoga class comprehensive and like really activating at the time. That was my goal. Now it's a different thing, but I just didn't get it. So I took another 200-hour training with a school in Brooklyn called New Love City. And that was a pretty great training. Was there more to be desired? I think yes. And I think eventually I'm going to do a 300-hour because I would just love to. But I did other trainings between then. So I did a prenatal yoga training. I did a yin training after that. I did a short training, and it was like a yin restorative training, but they like included the Chinese elements as far as their their practice, and then a trauma-informed training. But yeah, that second 200-hour training was great. And I had a mentor in that program that focused on anatomy specifically, and that was really helpful.
That's good.
I'm trying to see I don't know how to deepen on that. Like what?
No, I guess what kind of experiences did you have aside from, like the struggles that you may have had with anatomy? What else may have come up for you throughout that process? Like,
besides the glaring obviousness of like not seeing anybody else Black, I think it was me, and that 200 hour, I think it was me and a person who was multiracial but not clear. I think they were Black and something else. I'm not sure what the other thing was. Yeah, it was very white. None of the mentors or teachers were Black. There was, fortunately, a diversity aspect to it, but even that was, like, I had mentioned comedic yoga in, like, that training, and they're like, what? What's that? They're like, it's like yoga from Kemet or Egypt, like, and that focuses on these poses, and they're just like my anatomy mentor, he was like, well, technically, based on the etymology, it doesn't seem like it preceded what we know as yoga today, right? And I'm like, okay, right, but like the way that it's kind of just like, oh, that doesn't seem like something that's real, or that seems like something that somebody made up, because there's so many various yoga kinds of styles that kind of rub me the wrong way, to say the absolute least. So yeah, it's very, very white, very Western. But the plus to that was that it made me very hungry to learn true tradition and like see the ways that maybe I may be even whitewashing the practice based on what I've learned. And yeah, so I think it just makes me more diligent about trying to at least understand the origins of practice, even if I don't end up incorporating it into how I teach.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I think also the studio that I learned from, the way that they sequence and the way, you know how it is, like the way that a studio teaches is going to be the way that shapes your teaching style for a while.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, always have a peak pose that's extreme. Like always have a revolved half moon as your peak pose. And I think I had to learn through experiences with other teachers that I took on as mentors later that yoga didn't have to look like that. Like you can make something else a peak pose and, all that stuff.
Yeah. Man, you brought up a lot of great points there. Because I too am on a mission to just really learn and understand a lot of the origins and, the different philosophies that are attached to the practice, and not just, the South Asian versions of things like that are the most known, but yoga that pops up anywhere else in the world. So I'm really interested in learning more about comedic yoga and have been for a while. I don't know if I've been able to find a training.
That was my issue as well.
Yeah.
There was one training.
That's something that's even like offered like
consistently.
Is it?
It's not consistently though, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm like, do you do this every year? If so, like, can I figure out when to plan this into my life? Because trainings get expensive.
Yeah, there was one that I heard of. I lived in the middle of 2020, I moved to Atlanta, which is like the most amazing Black city. Like, I think Atlanta like made me like hungry to be in more Black spaces in a certain way. New York is very diverse. Brooklyn is very diverse. It's obviously very Black, but Atlanta, it's different. And I would never like stay in Atlanta, but like for real, but the culture of it and being immersed in that space as well, great. But they had a comedic yoga training based there, but the most of the training was in Egypt, but it was really expensive. It was like, I think $5,000 or $6,000, which at the time just was not feasible for me.
Yeah.
But it was like, I think like a month or so there. But
Wow.
the idea was to be doing comedic yoga. And
The
the pictures that I saw from it looked great. It looked amazing. But like you said, it's really, really hard to find. Also, I think it's just hard to find like reliable sources of information as far as origins go. But I think even with poses, like it makes sense that it would precede what we know as yoga, just because like pyramid pose is downward dog, like what we know is downward dog. And that makes more sense to me than calling it downward dog, even though I know dogs do that stuff. But like,
yeah.
There's just certain things that make sense to me as far as aesthetics go, or like the physical practice, that I couldn't imagine that someone made that up post the asanas that were learned after, that we know now as yoga.
Yeah.
So I feel you on that.
Man, got a long way to go to get a lot of recognition into the different variations of things, but living in this country, they'll quick to commercialize a weird variety of something before really digging deeper into origins of something. Because now,
absolutely,
like the fact that goat yoga is wide known is just really
weird.
Thank you. That's the perfect word. It's weird. Like, how is it that you are aware of goat yoga more than comedic yoga when it's been around, if not longer than, as long as the yoga that you know from India?
Absolutely. It's very strange. And I also just think the nature of goats running around. I mean, I'm not an animal girl like that either, so maybe that's why.
See, I love animals, love the idea of goats.
Huh?
I love animals, but not in my practice.
Yeah, animals are cool. Like, I want animals to do well. You know, I want them to prosper, be taken care of, but not when I'm trying to.
No, that's not centering for me. That's distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I had my dog, like he was not, like I had to train him to leave me be while I was on my mat. Or meditating or anything, because he would sure try to climb all over me. Like,
they can probably sense something energetically happening, because cats do that too. Like they'll walk right. Like I was at a friend's house practicing once, and she has 2 cats. One of them just walked right underneath me in downward dog once. I'm just like, hey, I'm trying to move, but like, I feel like they feel it.
Yeah. Because I knew he could tell, like, oh, this is where she gets her relaxation in, and she's less tense. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But I can't be less tense if you're in the way, and now I'm worried about stepping on you. And I would expect that same energy practicing with livestock in the space.
Yeah.
Not to mention the smell.
I was going to say, like, I didn't want to bring hygiene, like, straight out the gate, because I feel like that has undertones. But like, what about hygiene? You know what I mean?
I love goats. I think goats are adorable and just the cutest. They're a little aggressive, but I mean, they remind me of myself as an Aries.
Like, you're an Aries? Shout out to you. I have an Aries moon.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, I mean, so I get it, but I'm way worse. I'm worse off.
But it's like, yes, that's where the camaraderie ends, where it's like, yes, we brethren, all right, but stay over there, please. This is a separate thing. This is where my Cancer moon comes in. I'm sorry, my Cancer rising comes in, and I need to.
Oh, that's dope. I'm a Cancer sun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Gemini moon. So.
Oh, nice. My daughter has a Gemini moon.
Oh my goodness.
Y'all are like this.
Yes.
Just going.
Can't stop. Like, would love to just sit down sometimes. Like, I have to force it.
That's cool. That's a fun combo of planets.
Yeah.
The fun never stops.
Having a Cancer sun with an Aries moon.
I'm a Taurus rising.
Taurus. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
At least you have something there to really ground.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for it. I could have been somebody else for real. Yeah. It hides the impulsivity of an Aries moon, because I think Cancer is the only water placement I have, like in my my planets, that part of the chart. It's the only water. Everything else is fire.
Wow.
So yeah, it helps to settle that fiery energy. Although I think people pick it up, but yeah, it makes me come off a little bit more like, no pun intended, more namaste, more chill. Yeah.
All right, so tell me a little bit more about the teachings that you offer. If I were to walk into a space where you're teaching, what would my experience be like?
Okay, so it depends. So right now I am currently teaching deep stretch and power yoga. Very opposite ends of the spectrum, so to speak. If you're coming into a power class, my power is not Western power. So there isn't like, I don't want to say it like judgy, but there isn't like almost, let me find the right word first. Because I was going to use the word nonsensical, but that's rude. I would say there isn't like sequencing to prove a point in the context of like moving so fast and not kind of being present. Because sometimes when I'm in power classes, I'm just like going, and it feels great. And I get the adrenaline rush, but it doesn't feel present. But it is power in the sense that there are charge strengthening poses. It is moving a bit faster, but I do try to be intentional about cueing, and making sure that I'm keeping people alert in their bodies, making sure that they're, I don't want to say keeping alignment because it is what it is, but yeah, I'm a little bit more intentional there. You're going to come in, it's going to be fun. I try to have fun with my class and give them things that engage them, give them modifications when necessary. I like to tell my class when they have a couple things left. So if we're doing like a kind of dynamic motion from like plank to down dog to plank to down dog, I'll let them, all right, this is your last plank. Like, let's make it count, and we'll hold that for a little bit longer. And I try to like push them through. If it's a deep stretch class, it is a lot more Erykah Badu giving neo soul, you know, that kind of energy. Usually there's frequency playing. I like to have frequency playing in the back of my classes. So I feel like it adds to a healing experience. And those classes are a lot slower. We stay in poses for a lot longer. Feels great. I think people really enjoy deep stretch. I think people become really aware of their bodies.
Yeah.
And it just becomes trance-like, which I love to see. There's nothing like, and you probably can identify with this, but there's nothing like walking into a class and teaching a class and feeling the energy be kind of almost unfocused and weird when it starts. And then at the end of class, everyone's just like,
like shoulders like a little, like 3 inches. Yeah.
Shoulders have dropped. Everyone's just kind of quiet. Like you can tell there's some introspection happening, or there's like you can almost hear the recalibration of their brains. They're like, oh, okay, I gotta get ready for the real world. Like it's that beautiful moment. So I think that's what you can expect.
Love that.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, I've been really into a lot of frequencies for my background music lately. Like I used to be real, curated playlist type of person. And I got to a point where I'm like, this is kind of tiring for me, but also a little distracting for me too.
Yes.
I'm a music junkie. I love music. And if I get the right song in there, I'll probably start singing it instead of cueing. I was like, I can't do that to myself. And plus I feel like it adds to the experience, sensory wise, taking you out of the awareness of the sounds that are going on, but still having it there. Just kind of in the background as, white noise or something. But I really wanted to go back to what you said about how your approach to power classes and allowing for an adrenaline rush. And it turned a light bulb on for me because I'm like, is that what we're all seeing? Or, well, I shouldn't generalize and say we, but what many people are seeking in some of those power classes that are, I'm using air quotes for those that aren't watching the video, traditional in the States, where it's a real ass kicking type of class where, you get into this really crazy peak posture and, do you have energy by the end of class? Probably not. But, like that, I think that makes more sense to me now that it's an adrenaline rush that folks are feeling.
Yeah.
And not necessarily a deeper connection. It's you got, the system, or the what is it? The fight system activated.
Oh yeah. I would definitely say that I think that's a good portion of what people are seeking in more westernized practices.
Yeah.
I think what I've learned in the process, so I was diagnosed with ADHD earlier in 2022. What is time? I don't know. And I learned about the dopamine seeking brain. And I think that even if there is a technical diagnosis of ADHD for me, I think the Western world, like our collective brain, is dopamine seeking, and it is the only thing that cannot be satiated. So I do think people are searching for that. We want to feel accomplished. We want to feel like we did something. And something about the technicality of sequencing, specifically in power yoga, you see the completion, right? Like you see, like if you're doing figure 4 shapes and you're opening up your hips and you're doing warrior 2s, and then when you finally hit the half moon or the whatever pose you decide for an open hip there, like it feels incredible when you see the class building, especially if you've been practicing for a while. I'm a teacher, so I will be more aware of that. But yeah, when you feel that building, okay, now we're adding on this pose. Now we've added a triangle. Now in this rotation, I can do a triangle, but like now I can really, really reach my arm up, or like I can squeeze this glute and I can like open up. When you feel that, that's a rush. That's a rush.
Just that reward system. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you're incorporating the breathing, there's such relief there. And I think it's an outlet also for people to feel alive and feel very present in a way that it's almost they can't, but it's hard to do in a day to day.
Yeah.
Like if I was as alert, or if I was as present in my practice, or as willing to be present in my practice, like in my day to day, just walking down the street, I'd be so happy. I'd never feel depressed ever. So yeah, no, definitely dopamine seeking, definitely adrenaline related, I think, in my humble opinion. Which is okay.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Any way we can get folks to the mat, I think.
Yeah. Let's get the gateway open, and then we'll usher you into the real palace.
Worry about the details later.
You might be in the front yard right now, and the front yard's pretty immaculate, but wait till you get to the big house. That's the treat.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that.
No, I can totally relate with how you approach power yoga, because that's where I've gone as well, because knowing that that's what's in demand and where a lot of us are going to probably find the opportunity to teach, I'm trying to find a way to make it so that I can still kind of tick off those boxes for those that are seeking, those things that we just talked about, but still putting it in a way where I'm incorporating all of the, the different pieces of yoga that aren't just ass kicking asana.
Yeah. And I think that's challenging. Yeah, no, I feel that. No, but that's real. That's real. I think that's challenging. And I think that I'm still figuring out ways to marry, because they're really opposite.
It's challenging.
But, yeah, absolutely. Because you want to be able to engage people, but also there's a moment, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but like if you teach a class, you can feel the class like not vibing with whatever you're trying to do, or you can, not everyone, but like you can feel like there's one person that came in and they were seeking a different experience, and they're starting to check out of the experience, or they don't appreciate the experience, or maybe they can't access whatever it is you're trying to teach. As far as cueing goes, or maybe your cueing isn't succinct, and so that's hard, trying to find a way to reach everyone in the context of bringing yoga to them. Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of the reasons why I was in my mind, like, let's get back into some private yoga stuff. Because as much as I love group classes, I think they're great, but I really do appreciate being able to actually focus on maybe like 1 to no more than 3 people in a space, and really give them what they're looking for. Because get a group larger than that on me, I'm a fellow person with ADHD too. Like, it's hard for me to, figure that out, because it's like, well, I might have 8 people that are all right with, that one approach, and then have that one person that, is, throwing handstands in the corner. And I'm
Yeah.
yeah,
And that
not
hurts your
everybody's
ego.
right there yet.
Yeah, it hurts my ego too as a teacher. I'll speak for myself when I'm like trying to cue like a really deep meditative, savasana and I'm talking people down, and then there's just one person like trying to do a wheel. Like, it is time to rest. We only got 5 minutes. Lay down. What are you doing?
I keep trying to add postures in here to appease y'all. Now we only have so much time to get the rest, and that's the most important piece in my opinion.
You knocking your knees together. Rest your body, please. This is my own. I have one job.
Yes.
Literally, but it's not about it's not about what I want the people to do. It's about what they want to do. So
that's why I'm like, you know what? Do that as long as they're quiet. That's all I ask. Is just as long as you do that quietly. Please don't knock your water bottle over.
It's me. I'm the person that might knock my water bottle over. Just clumsy.
Now, see, as an instructor, my thing has always been like, I don't know what it is, but because a lot of the places that I teach have Bluetooth stereo systems. Mm-hmm. So if my phone is in the way and I try to move it, I don't know how my finger always finds the damn volume button, but there it is, cranking it up when it's supposed to be a quiet moment. I'm like, here I am being the distraction.
It happens. I think it's all good.
It's so, I love when it does happen though, because it really gives people that opportunity to be like, okay, stop taking it so seriously. Have a little moment to laugh a little bit. And it allows us to really be in the moment because like, oh yeah, that happened in real time. How did you respond? How did your body feel? What did your mind do? Real test of your practice skills. Yeah.
Let me grab my charger really quick. I don't want my device to die. It would be like right when we're getting into the thick of it, where it would really Mercury is about to be out of retrograde, so
it hasn't been too bad, but
not too bad, not too crazy.
Because it's what planet was it in? Or not planet?
What sign is it in?
Sign. Yeah. Was it?
I think it's in Capricorn.
I can't remember.
Right? I don't. Usually I'm on it.
Yeah.
Or is it in Gemini?
Say. Part of me wants to say Cancer, but I feel like I'm wrong.
I don't think it's in Cancer, but to be quite honest, I'm not sure. Where is this? Okay.
I don't remember. But all I do remember seeing about it in my little searchings was that it was actually a time of things kind of making a little bit more sense than we're usually accustomed to with the Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, that's why I think it's in Capricorn, but I'm not sure because I know that Mars was also retrograde. I know we had a full moon in Capricorn. Mm-hmm. Or was it a full moon in Cancer? Listen, man, I've taken all that information and I do like consider myself like big on astrology and I try to be on top of that stuff. But if it's not immediately in my brain, then
it's hard to access.
Yeah.
Look, because I've been playing around with tarot for it's been a couple of years now. And I still need to use all of the reference resources to help me out, even though, I do it as intuitively as I possibly can. But there's still some things where I'm like, what was that about again?
Yeah.
And I can't get it until I look and see. I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay. But
I would say so.
Visual sometimes.
Yeah. Same for me with tarot as well. I think I'm pretty intuitive with reading things, but especially with like the major arcana. But
yeah,
I definitely do. I still resort to like, what does this card mean? And then also I think there's like the seeking nature of like thinking you're getting a reading or getting a card that means something that you don't want it to mean. So like seeking alternative Like, oh, this is a
Yeah.
tower card. Oh, like, but maybe it means that it's
I know
not
that's
that.
let
How
me
can I
just
make
not
this count?
project what I want it to mean and what does it actually mean, or at least quote unquote actually mean.
Right.
Because I'll throw an interpretation in there and be completely off base because I just wanted it to be that, and
There
then
is a,
life
yeah.
happens and I'm like, yeah, I was wrong. I knew better. The card was telling me exactly what I needed to know, and I was like, but no.
Some things don't make sense until retrospect, until hindsight. I saw this
Mhm.
meme one time, and it was like the same person, but like in different disguises, and it was like me asking spirit the same questions in tarot. It was like, oh, like just shuffling, asking, oh, okay, I'm asking it again and again, asking for clarifiers. Like we just need to accept what we're being told.
Yep,
So hard.
it is. But I mean, I guess that's just the human experience. Who
That's
knows?
real. That's so
Who
real.
knows? Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Kat, we had to switch modalities a little bit because we were having some technical difficulties, but we're going to
Yeah.
power through. We're going to
We
power
have
through.
we're flexible. No pun intended.
Yes. I mean, this is the practice of yoga, right? In real life, is how are you going to react in the moment? Are you going to let it take over the moment, or are you going to just
Mm-hmm.
adapt? And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to adapt because we are.
Amen.
Yes. So, with that said, I want to ask you a question that has become a tradition of the podcast, and that is for you to provide advice to our listeners. So, what would you give advice, or I'm sorry, what advice would you give to those that are seeking to start the practice? And what advice would you give for those seeking to move their practice from student to instructor?
Okay, this is our third attempt at this. So I'm going to make this answer as concise as I can. For people who are approaching yoga, who are brand new to yoga, my advice would be to stay in it. Jump in, stay in, and be consistent. The practice evolves and changes. And I'll say that it moves through you. So as you learn more, you'll look for different things. So just stick with it. That's it for that. For people who are looking to teach, I would say that perfection is the enemy, so to speak. Yoga is a growing practice, and as a teacher, um, your responsibility is to make it about the yoga. Like you're teaching the yoga, you're not teaching from your ego or anything else. And then the other side is that never forget that you are always a student. So allow yourself to learn from other teachers, take everyone's class. Everyone you know that teaches, take their class, and be open to feedback. I think that was like a really hard part for me as a teacher. Like, yeah, like you want to learn, but like also you don't want to feel like your teaching style is maybe not welcomed or rejected in any way. And that's a separate issue. That's a deeper thing. So just yeah, do the yoga, teach the yoga.
I love it. That's great advice. Thank you very much for that, Kat. So where can the people find you? On social media, in person, wherever they want to experience your magic?
All right, I'm gonna keep this oriented around yoga because I could give out my TikTok, but I don't think that that would be reflective of yoga things. I'll say for right now, I am a my child. I am on Instagram at Temperance and Yoga. I have a Patreon where folks can subscribe and get weekly classes. I'm on YouTube as well. If you look up Temperance and Yoga, I should pop up, or Temperance and Wellness. And if you also go to my Instagram, I'm there. Like you'll get the little access to those links. And as far as teaching, I'm always open to be booked via my Patreon. There is a link to email me. You can always just message me. I'm open to the DMs. Like there are some folks that are like sticklers about like don't DM me, please DM me. Any questions you have, any processes. So I do virtual teachings, and I am currently teaching in the Richmond, Virginia DMV area. I currently teach at the Y and 2 other studios in Richmond here. And then I'm open to DMV. So yeah, those are the places. Temperance and yoga. That's it.
Awesome. Well, y'all better go follow her right now. Right now. Like, don't
Oh,
waste any time right now. Sign up for the Patreon, all of that.
amen.
Yes. Kat, thank you so very much for your time. I truly appreciate you being a trooper through this process.
Thank you. Thank you for having this platform and just doing your thing. You're killing it. You're doing your thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Awesome.
very much. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's not possible without y'all. So thank you for keeping it alive.
Hey, awesome.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll see you on the internet.
All right. Sounds good. For those listening or watching, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Hey there, Tierney again. I know you just finished the podcast episode and you're probably wanting to just go about your business or listen to the next one, but I have some exciting news. We're monetizing the podcast now. I know. This is so cool. It's so cool. But anyway, with that said, we are now able to take donations directly from the podcast. So if you're listening on Spotify, head to the show notes and there is a link there that you can click to provide your support. If you are not listening on Spotify, we still got you covered. You can either go to the website or go to our link tree by way of our Instagram bio link. Your money would go towards supporting this platform in all of its ways, keeping the podcast alive, giving us the ability to offer programming in the future. And those programs will look like classes, workshops, and so much more. There's a lot planned for this platform and can't do it without your help. So if you do have it within you to help us out, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so very much. I appreciate everything that you all do for this community here. Be blessed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Yoga in Black podcast. New episodes air every Tuesday, and next episode I'll chat with Dr. LaTora Grant Scott. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, and iHeartRadio, or you can check us out on YouTube. And if you want to connect with us, head to our website, www.yogainblack.net, or on Instagram at yoga.inblack, and also on Facebook as Yoga in Black. We'll see you next week.